Well, the year's gone very quickly. I've learnt all the way through that year about the complexity of the role. I think it's important to state that I think the role is entirely doable as the Police and Crime Commissioner. I have examined that many times. I've thought, this is a government concept. Am I going to make a success of this? And today, with the team I've got, I feel excited by it. I'm excited by the opportunities, and I feel we can make a real success of it. We have covered a lot of ground, and not least is the transition between the mindset of the old police authority, and I would say today there is very little trace of the old police authority activities. That's not to be disrespectful of the old police authority, but we've changed our working ways, and we're more dynamic, more agile, and more probing, perhaps, more inquiring, more empowered in all the things we're doing here. And there are many milestones I think we've passed on the way. So it's an exciting time. It's one I'm engaged in heavily. It's one I'm very committed to, and I look forward to continuing it.
I know you're very much the kind of person that likes to look forward, but I suppose on these occasions, 12 months in, there is a small opportunity to glance backwards as well at the achievements. What would you put right at the top of the list of something that you've done that's made a real difference?
Without a doubt, every day I ask myself, what does the public want of this role? And that's a complicated answer. But I've put at the top of it holding up police numbers as best I can. Now, I inherited a position where we were on a glide slope between 3,500 officers down to 2,810 through through the public's acceptance, if you like, of putting up the precept 2%, which was £3 a head per year of the population here, together with judicious use of resources and reserves. I've been able to put a 4-year plan together which holds up police numbers above 3,000. That 200 difference, I think, makes a vast difference to the outcome that we can achieve here. And I really, really do not want to go down to 2,810 or 2,800. And when I say I'm speaking on behalf of the Chief Constable as well, because of course he agrees on that point. The biggest achievement is to hold up numbers. Other achievements, very significant in my mind, is the vast increase in public engagement that we've seen, that we've really developed over time. A real energy about going out into the public. And why does that matter? Because the concept actually is about engaging in the public, giving the public a new opportunity to have their say in the policing plan for this, the biggest policing area in England. And I think that then gives them, my engagement with them, explains about policing and gives them the opportunity to make a real contribution. So we've at least doubled the public engagement of the old police authority. Nobody knew the police authority. I think that people are beginning to understand that I'm there as their voice, the public's voice, to give them a greater say. And then on top of that, there's the whole issue of scrutiny of the police performance. Now, we're doing that in a novel way. We're doing it with the compliance, with the acceptance of our police force, in going out into the public arena around Devon and Cornwall and asking the police whether they're achieving the police and crime plan targets that I've set, and in fact that the public has set. And I think the public is gaining a greater view of the issues there. And there are complex issues between achieving success in some of the heavy-end crime, burglary, sexual crimes and all of that, against the volume of low-end crime that is quite prevalent at the moment in Devon and Cornwall. So I think in that area, I'm making a huge difference. And on top of that, commissioning, the public may not understand what I mean by commissioning, but that is carefully deciding on the service we require, or the public requires, from the community safety partnerships, drug alcohol teams, youth offending teams, and all of that. And the new commissioning process I've set up as designed to be a light touch scrutiny of those organisations, but to ensure that they follow the guidelines of the Police and Crime Plan, and then they report back on their achievements.
I mean, clearly from what you've said all the way through this interview so far, it's talking about the public, engaging with the public. This is what your role is all about. It's re-engaging the police, if you like, with the public and interpreting their policing needs across what is a really unique, large policing area of Devon and Cornwall. And you've been hearing a lot of feedback. People want to see more uniforms on the street, but of course we have budget problems. We've got funding issues which are ongoing and will be increasingly so over the next 3 or 4 years.
Yes, there are several points in there. First of all, the public sometimes are confused and think that I'm a police officer. I am there in a governance role. We don't really talk about ombudsman, but in the sense of connecting with the public, it's something like that. I am there to give them a voice in how they are policed. And I'm there in a strategic way, not just to hold the police to account, but also to support the police, because in many ways I think policing does need more support. And actually, subtly, to draw the police and the public together, because only by drawing them together are we going to solve the very challenging problems downstream in terms of funding in 2016-17, which is a primary focus for me at the moment. There is today's business, and we spend a lot of time on that. I've mentioned some of that, not all of it. But actually, strategically, the public wouldn't forgive me for not looking ahead. We have a period of good news at the moment, which is in that the current plan, 4-year plan, sees recruiting of police officers, investing in the police, recruiting of special constables. But what we can see as a rather dark cloud on the horizon is 2016, and then where the local authorities or the public sector in the round is probably going to have to deliver significant savings. So right now, on the public's behalf, I'm saying, how are we going to close the gap between holding up police numbers and the resources that we may be expecting in years 3 or 4 of our 4-year plan? And I think we're only going to do that by a number of things. The public playing its part in its own public safety, cultural change in the police, and I mean by that the police, who are a noble body of the people there to protect us in the public realm, but they are in many ways a family all of their own, and I need them to open the doors to what the public actually want, which is to help the police through more special constables, more volunteering, and the public playing its own part. We see lots of beginnings of that in neighbourhood schemes, in business in the community, business schemes to avert shoplifting, and in the community beginning to realise that it's not going to see more police officers. We're going to have a challenge in holding up the numbers. So if it wants a safer community, it has to play an active part. And the police have got to enable that through opening their doors to the public. People say to me, oh, but the volunteers wouldn't be able to read the police computers. Well, if we vet the volunteers, there is no reason why they shouldn't do some of that work. And there will be sensitivities all over this, from police officers themselves who think it might be policing on the cheap, through the Federation and others who are there to watch over these issues. But together, we've got to break down some of these barriers and tackle those issues now that we're going to have to sort out in 2 or 3 years' time.
And the ongoing issue as well, of course, is that this is such a diverse policing area with rural, urban, coastal needs, priorities, and a massive influx of population in the summer months. I know also you spent a deal of time in this first 12 months lobbying quite hard with our MPs, with central government, to try and get Devon and Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly a fairer share of this policing budget, if you like.
Yes, I think we have got to use a number of levers to help us in this challenge that we face. we can look at it in different ways. We can say we're not going to win more or new public money because there isn't any. We might, if we work really hard, using some of the reports we've had from Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary, to build an evidence base that says to the Home Office and to the Ministry of Justice that actually we need a fairer share of the pot of money available to policing because we have the population of the City of London moving in the summer months. But alongside that, nobody's going to forgive me again for not bearing down on efficiency and value for money within the police. And I'm sure that in there is more to give, albeit I do accept that in this particular funding round, 2011 to 2015, Devon and Cornwall started in a more efficient configuration than other forces, and then when loaded with the 2011 to 15 public sector savings, they've found it more difficult than others to deliver that because they jumped the gun in 2010. But just as importantly, in terms of coping with 2016, we've got to lower demands on the police, back to the public playing its part, touching on partnership working and of course remembering that our partners are going to be suffering equal cutbacks, and we've got to be very aware of where this is going to impact on domestic violence or sexual violence or whatever. The alcohol agenda, if we can reduce the overindulgence in alcohol, not only are we going to help victims, help those who have an alcohol problem, we're going to reduce the load on A&E, we're going to reduce the demands on policing so that we can cope better in 2016. So there are a whole range of issues that we need to bring out in a package that makes us ready for the challenges of the future.
So looking to the future, presumably your experience in this first year of working alongside the Chief Constable means that you're now sort of having a look at your police and crime plan, you're refining the police and crime plan, you're analysing the priorities alongside the Chief Constable, who of course has made it clear that the public must tell him what crimes they want assessed. The crime levels, of course, is an ongoing situation as well to talk about. So when you move forward, how much different will your policing plan be as the months go by?
I think it's a time for high levels of integrity in the police. That means, I think in Devon and Cornwall, that we're very lucky in comparison, maybe it's not luck, in comparison with other police forces, because we have, I think, in my view, a high level of integrity in our police in Devon and Cornwall, which is my remit, and the Isles of Scilly. But it's a time for very significant leadership at all levels, in me, in my office, in the Chief Constable, in his management board, and all the way down through the police, to actually carry people through this period of change. So it's going to be a time when Sean Sawyer, the Chief Constable, and I work together, supporting each other. We're going to encounter challenges, we're going to encounter barriers that we're going to knock down together so that we can hold the numbers up into the future. So it's a time for bold leadership, and we've got to look to our teams to demonstrate that and work together and knit together as teams. And then, of course, within the wider team of the partners that we have within Devon and Cornwall, and never forgetting that at the end of all of this talk about budgets, about crime levels and all of that, there are victims out there on the streets that are hurting because of some of the crimes. And my job overall is the totality of policing, and it is to cut crime and the fear of crime.
And finally, Tony Hogg, a year into your initial 3.5 years term of office, there are still people, the public, who question the role, maybe don't understand the role as much as hopefully they will in the future, and still people asking about the influence, the cost of the office, and about the actual impact that you can make. Do you think you've made real progress now in persuading the doubters that the role of a police and crime commissioner is a much needed, a valuable and a very influential one?
I think I would have made some progress. I think I believe this is a pioneering job. It is not the same as the police authority. There are doubters. They have reason to doubt. There are stories of how police and crime commissioners act across the nation as a whole. But I hope in the things that I'm doing that people can see that I'm not there just to gain credence as a politician or whatever. I'm here, as I always have done, to do a job in the public domain for the public to the best of my ability. And I think if people see that I'm not just knee-jerking over things, I'm not profligate in the use of public money. We have an office now that is fit for purpose going into the future. In one tiny section of it, we're commissioning £4 million, and I have 1 or 1.5 people, 2 people to do that. Just one tiny example of what we're doing. We've invited the public and the press into the office here to talk to the team, to see what they're doing and to understand better what we're trying to deliver in the name of the role of the Police and Crime Commissioner. I'm not complacent. I am optimistic. I hope that more and more people can see through the press and through my many visits in the public domain that we are beginning to make a difference. And I think by the end of the term in 2016, I think the public will have a much better understanding of the Police and Crime Commissioner role, and then can make their judgments again as to whether they would wish to do this in any other way. But I, for one, think it's working.